Decentralization. This is a very important issue because we have a lot of things in this country where everything is centralized. Everything is controlled from a center of power. But what if that power is broken up? What if that power is spread all over the place? And there are two areas that really connect everything here: banking and government. And these are the two areas I want to talk about with decentralization today. So let's start with banking. Money makes the world go round. Everybody's heard that before. And the Constitution clearly states that Congress has the power to value, print, and coin and distribute monies. But what if you amended the Constitution to where every city, every county, if you wanted to go a little broader than that, but let's keep it simple. What if every city could print its own money? You wouldn't use different money, obviously. As a nation, we would use the same money, but what if you could do that? What if you had a system that propped it up in a way that allowed them to print money without losing value? Interesting. Well, that's exactly what a decentralized banking system is meant to do. Because every locality in the country has different needs. And to have a banking system, a monetary system controlled from a central point, is just ludicrous. It's too much power in too few hands. When you're dealing with a huge population of millions of people, you have to understand that not everybody's needs are going to be the same, save for the basics. For food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, education, the 5 pillars of life, as I call them, the 5 needs of every society. Well, then, you're going to get some people who are going to be left behind eventually, right? And we see this clear as day in today's world. Because the politicians, of course, give all the money to the banksters and the corporations and the billionaires. And the rest of us are just left to fend for ourselves. And every time we might try to fend for ourselves, the corporations and the billionaires and the lobbyists try to make it more and more illegal for us to do so. They try to force the politicians to pass legislation that make us depend on the capitalist system that these people profit from and make it illegal to operate outside of it. That's not fair, is it? That's not a free society. And all because this is all being controlled from a central point. So what happens when you splinter that? When you break it all up? When municipalities become the centers of power for the respective representatives? So, in banking terms, every bank would basically be a city bank, okay? Owned by the public. And they would elect their board of directors. They would elect the person overseeing the banking system itself. And the only people in control of the money would be the persons whose account it is. Now, how would they get access to that account without going through an intermediary as we're so used to doing? Well, in this instance, banking is little more than a public storage facility for money. Now, I have a little idea about how to go forward with something like this, where instead of issuing cards to everybody full of numbers, using resources like plastic and paper, how about just using DNA? Use your thumbprint, palm print, any combination of fingers. You could do a breathalyzer, retina scan, things like that. Things that are unique to you. You could even do voice recognition to activate your account or get access to your account. And that way you could spend the money or deposit the money, whatever the case may be. So if that were the case, nobody would have access to it but you. I mean, your own signatures like that are much, much harder to fabricate. So if you did it that way, you would have a system where the people who have the bank accounts only have access to their money and nobody could steal them, or at least it's incredibly minimized, to the point where it would be very, very rare for something like that to happen. But then you have the issue of the money itself and how to make sure that it doesn't lose value if you have to print more. Well, you also have the concept of digital money happening here with cryptocurrencies and the debit and credit lines that we see. Nowadays, most money is just numbers transferred in a computer. That's all it is. 97% of the nation's wealth, the nation's money, is digital. You heard that right. 97% of the nation's money is digital. Now, the way the system is set up now, that 97% is pure debt. Because the monetary system we're operating on is still very archaic and relies on solid tangibles to be considered money itself, or liquidity, as they call it. Well, what happens when you put digital currency on the same plane of existence as physical currency, rather? What if they're in the same arena of understanding? Doesn't matter whether you have physical or digital, it's the same. That would be ideal, right? It wouldn't matter if you had physical money or digital money. Now we're getting somewhere. Well, that's what my hydrodollar system is really all about. At least it's one idea. To use the world's water supply, the world's water table, okay, the whole world, all of it, fresh, salt water, glaciers, moisture, groundwater, you name it, everything. And just keep measuring it every year, and every year the different measurements will determine the intrinsic value of the currency, and then the amount of money that you can print physically or digitally is totally decoupled from the way which we are traditionally used to valuing money. It's all a state of mind here. Money valuing is all a state of mind. So if we did it this way, you could print as much money as you needed physically or digitally. In fact, it would be encouraged to do it digitally, and that would save resources on the environment. And you could stimulate the rest of the economy otherwise. There you have it. So that's what a decentralized banking system would look like. The people would be in charge of their own money. They would elect the people who are in charge of overseeing it, which means that the power of the purse, by extension, is really passed on to the people. So how could this best function? Well, here's another thing about this, especially with the monetary system. If you have a monetary system that it doesn't matter how much you print, it doesn't lose value, well then, no such thing as budgeting, right? It just becomes a matter of priority. Where do you spend it first, okay? Now, because it's mostly digital, you really don't have much to worry about, because all you got to do is add more zeros in cyberspace. The Fed's already admitted they do this all the time. So with that in mind, all you have to do is just decide where, as a society, where do you want your priorities with your tax dollars? Do you want your tax dollars to go to public projects? Do you want it to go towards, say, a UBI? Do you want it to go towards healthcare? Do you want it to go towards funding a local militia? Whatever the case is. Even better, though, wouldn't it be great if you could have the say in determining your own representative salaries? That's a great idea, right? That would hold them accountable to you. So if you could determine your representative salaries with this kind of banking system, they would have to come to us and say, how do you think I'm doing? I'd like a raise, and we could vote yes or no. So if they're doing a good job, maybe we give them a raise. If they're not, we say, no, sorry, try harder, buddy. So there's one idea. Now, before I get too totally lost in what I'm talking about here, because I kind of feel like I'm slipping a bit, I want to get to the government aspect of this, a decentralized government. And I want to start off with the question of, why do we have a capital? Why do we have to elect people and send them to a specific city every year? What's the point of that? I'm really like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? The thing is here, if you elect a federal official and a senator, a congressman, a president, you send them to Washington, D.C., you're not in close proximity to them. You can't keep an eye on them. You don't know what they're doing. And we have technology developed to the point where we really don't have to have everybody in the same room to do anything. So our way of governing, our way of practicing politics and government really just hasn't caught up with the times yet. So I think that we should just kind of get over this idea of sending everybody to a national capital, Just stay within your location if you represent that location. Keep in touch with those people. They will tell you what they want, and you can more directly take it to the greater stage from your location using the technology we have today. Remember I told you before in the voice voting segment that I did about how they passed that first stimulus package. It was over the phone, all right? Showing again, technology is at a point where we really don't need everybody in a central location. So, will we have a decentralized government? And if you want to hold them more accountable, not only should the people have the power of the purse in this regard to, determine their representatives' salaries, but also they would be in much closer proximity to them, their offices, those they surround themselves with, and therefore they'll have a much better idea of what's going through their heads, who they're really serving, what their ideas are, and we can more easily interact with them and say, yes, we like what you're doing. No, we don't like what you're doing. I see where you're going. Maybe we could make some changes here and there. So we could be more active in the greater political discussion if we kept our representatives close by and had a decentralized form of operation. So that's what a decentralized government would look like. Now, of course, the president being the chief spokesman for the entire country, he has to deal with all the international stuff, so it is what it is there. But those are just two ideas that I have on decentralization and how I think it could actually work. Because each municipality has its own set of needs, and if everything is coming from a central point, it's always a debate over who gets the funding and who doesn't, especially with the money being from a central point. But even when the government is located in a central point, they're not being closely watched by the people they represent because they're all in one location. Everybody else is scattered all over the country. And it's like, well, why do they think this? But we all know why, of course, because of the donors they serve. But again, if we had the power of the purse, if we were the ones that could say, you can make this much a year, you can make this much a year, do you want to raise? Not. You don't get one, you do get one. This is what we want our tax dollars to be used for, If we were more directly involved with a decentralized government structure, then I guarantee you we would be a much happier society because we would know where our taxes are going, what's actually happening, what's going to happen moving forward. And things would be a lot less tense, a lot more humane, and a lot better functioning overall, I think. So that's my segment today on decentralization. If you like it, go ahead and like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and I will be back later.